Hello, listeners. Thank you for joining us. Today I have Crystal Ybara, and she will be talking to us about her life. Hello, Crystal. How are you?
Good. How are you? Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Great, thank you. I'm excited. I'm excited to hear what you're doing. So tell me what you've been up to lately.
Well, I am, of course, I'm working. I'm almost an empty nester. I'm a mother of three grown ups. So I'm rediscovering myself in a post-pandemic world. More than anything, of course, alongside with my regular 8 to 5 job, I've been rediscovering content creating as a 40 plus year old woman. Again, post-pandemic, everything is changing. And AI that we're in right now,
Yeah.
everything is changing. So I'm rediscovering content creating right now.
I love that. I love that. Is there any specific content that you're into right now?
Yes. So, of course, you and I met. I was doing the coffee calendars and conversations, which was like planning based, and it was just really a way to get women motivated into living their best lives. I've intertwined back and forth with, coaching and different things like that. But currently, my current project that I'm really, really soaked in is called the Casino Mama. As I mentioned, my I am married, and my husband and I have really enjoyed and fallen in love with going to casino resorts, mainly in Las Vegas. And we go like to Lake Charles. We have really been indulging in the resorts and, of course, the casino lifestyle. It's really fun. And I have met like a whole beautiful community of content creators alongside this. So that's my current project that I'm working on.
That's amazing. I love that because you're in a special moment in your life where you're transitioning, right? Like you stated, you're headed towards that empty nester. And so it's so important to hear someone's from like a different stage in life because oftentimes we always just hear the same thing, right? But I love that you're transitioning. I love that.
So one of the things I will share really quickly and what got me involved in doing this, I mean, we were doing the casino stuff, we were going and going, and honestly, I saw somebody, recording and doing some things and making money doing so, and I was like, whoa, they're making money doing this. That's really cool, and then I just fell in love with going and doing it, and I was having fun videoing, restaurants, different stuff like that, but I will tell you what started and what really pushed me in that direction was the spark. The spark had died, and it really had died, and I could not for the life of me bring it back. Nothing was making me enjoy anything enough because I was working. My job was just, I started my job during the beginning of the pandemic. It wasn't necessarily like a dream job or anything, but I started it and I wasn't necessarily stuck there, but my creative abilities had died there, to be honest with you. And I found something that made me feel a spark and alive again. So I have grabbed onto it and am holding on to it with dear life and just really enjoying the fact that I'm wanting to be creative again. I used to blog, I used to have a podcast and all the stuff, and there was nothing in me that it was just like pumping, 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 trying to get it alive again. And you have to have the desire to do what you do, you
Exactly.
know? Yeah, and I had none. I had none, no desire to do it. And now I feel alive again, and I'm really grateful for that.
It's so important to have a creative flow, right? It's not just
Mhm.
like you said, like work, work, work. And I think not just as women, but just as humans, we feel the most inspired when we are in our creative, right?
Yes.
That's awesome. So, Crystal, can you tell me what was the most thing you had to overcome and how did you do it?
Well, I will say, and this is just more lately. I guess there's a whole bunch of things in life, of course, you know. Period. We can go on and on with those kind of stories, but I'll just go for a fresher one. Getting back out there, putting myself back on video, putting my name out there again, feeling afraid and doing it anyways. That's kind of been a thing lately for me too, is just stretching. We went to Las Vegas and I put myself out there and invited other content creators to do some collaborating and things. Just putting myself out there again, like making myself vulnerable. What if no one responds? Like, what if I say, hey, who wants to meet up? I'm going to be here. And like nobody responds. And sometimes even as adults, we feel embarrassed. We feel all these kind of things, but really just being vulnerable and admitting to myself that I am not a pro. I'm over here just trying my best to do the things and really just be vulnerable and put myself out there as a creator.
Yes, yes, that's is so important. Vulnerability. I mean, even when launching this podcast, you ask yourself, are these people going to say this? But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. It's what you want to do, right? It's like what
Mhm.
you're passionate about because there's always going to be people out there that are going to have something to say, good and bad. So,
Yeah. hmm And I was just chatting this morning with a couple of girls that are doing content creating just as I am. Like we have, like I said, we have this really amazing, beautiful community that I never would have thought was out there. They're all like slot content creators. And these two women we were talking about, just to be honest with you, we were having very womanly conversations, being like Women's International Day was like 2 days ago. It's Women's Month. I mean, it was just such a beautiful conversation. We were talking about I guess the point is the listeners that are for you are going to be for you. The people who are going to follow you are going to be for you. We live in this world right now where we feel like we have to have X amount of followers, X amount of views. Oh, create content with using this little trendy thing because you're going to get more views and more followers. But it's just click, there's just people clicking and it doesn't mean anything. You want the people to be drawn to you that you have a message for. So, I mean, that's my thing is authenticity, being myself, always staying true to who I am, no matter what, the platform or content is. Myself always shines through in my message, whatever that may be, goes to the right people that need to hear it.
yes, exactly. Authenticity. It is essential because we can't try to be somebody else or
Yep.
it's not gonna work.
Right. Right.
So I love that authenticity and being yourself, and that's the greatest thing anyone can do because there's so many people, like you said, on social media trying to be somebody else or the trends. So everyone's trying to have the same hair or the same type of nails. At the end of the day, that's not the way we're meant to be. We're supposed to be unique.
Right. Well, everyone's trying to get rich and famous doing it. And like, I mean, and in the truth, the people who get rich and famous do it just being themselves and creating new paths and just being authentic, not, like anyone else, because people see through that,
Yeah, I
They
mean,
can see through that.
exactly. I wanted to ask you, so has there been like a Jesus or God moment lately when you realized God is there guiding you? How did you surrender to him?
I'm gonna tell you an embarrassing story. I was gambling one day, and to be honest with you, I was down like money wise. Like I was down. I had X amount of dollars had lost, and then I went ahead and went for some more, which happens unfortunately, and it's something that I'm working on. And in that moment, I'm not even gonna lie. I prayed, like I prayed, and my husband and I had this conversation. And a while back, my husband kind of said like he felt weird about praying about it in casinos because I mean when people can go all types of ways. Like we feel like maybe God doesn't want us to be there. We're wasting money that we shouldn't be. Blah 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 blah. We can go on and on and on about that. How we justify this. It's our spending money. It's our date night money. It gives us joy. Whatever. I can go
Yeah,
on and on about that. But one particular day I prayed, like, God, just please just get me back to this point and I will go home,
yeah,
I will go home and I screwed up. I spent a little too much, please. It was just in a moment of despair. There's nowhere else for me to go but to God. God is with me whether I want him to be or not. He is with me. And I'm so grateful for that. It's me acknowledging that he's there with me and reaching out to him is what he wants. And I reached out to him and he answered and he delivered. And I would kid you not. I was down, like maybe like going down like $15 or something. And boom, I hit this, thing and I got back to where I needed to be. And then I'm going to tell you, go even a little further. What happened in my stupidity, I will say, and I don't call myself that often, and I don't like that word, and I don't like the negativity, but I kept going again and thought, okay, well, let me, if I could go a little bit more, and that's a whole nother thing. We can, I'm doing my work. If you're concerned about me, I'm doing my work. I promise. I'm definitely digging. But I ended up losing it again, and I all the way home, I had despair. I had despair, and I had guilt and I had remorse and I had sadness and those are the moments that we just unfold and surrender. And hopefully if we don't always, because we go into that dark place sometimes and we don't know where to go, and we have shame and guilt, and we don't want to go to God because we have guilt.
Mhm.
But I spent that time just with him and asked him to hold me, and I was sorry and I felt bad because like I asked him and he delivered. And it
Mhm.
reminded me of that story of the guy on the top of the roof where he's waiting for help, and the helicopter comes and the whatever
Mhm.
comes, or he's in the water. You know that story.
Yeah,
And
come save me.
obviously,
And then he's like,
yeah,
no, I'm waiting for God to save me, right?
exactly, exactly, exactly. And it reminded me of that story and how of a foolish person I had been. And it was just such a teaching moment. Of course, I learned not to take God for granted. He can answer prayer and he will. He doesn't always. But he's able and he can do anything. I mean, he knows our heart. He knows our desire. He wants us to come to him. He could have made me, a millionaire in that moment if he wanted to. You know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Yeah.
But he chose, and and he knew the outcome, and I was able just to really surrender. Furthermore, and that was probably a couple months ago. And furthermore, during this Lenten season right now, and I haven't practiced Catholicism in a long time. I don't do Lent every year. I think about it when it comes, and I pray, and I celebrate Easter, of course. And this Lenten season, I have decided to pause from gambling, and I'm really leaning onto, God for that right now. I can not do it, because I've just been doing it for a while, and I don't feel like there's a problem, but I want to make sure there's not a problem.
Yeah.
And I feel like God is that he can be that crutch. And I mean, with all due respect to the Lord, I feel like he wants me to use him for that. Like he wants to carry our burdens, and it's a little bit of a burden right now. I feel very suffocated with it a lot. I'm working on the content creating, have a lot of content, and I'm, like I mentioned earlier, I'm rediscovering content creating. Like I have to learn like video editing and all the things that go with, you can't just post a video up. You got to make sure that it's of value and that you're putting good stuff out there. And so I'm learning all that kind of stuff too. So I wanted to also create some space for me to ground myself, remain who I want to be, make sure that I'm not just drowning myself in doing, doing, doing. It's just a moment of a pause. And I'm definitely allowing, God right now to be the bridge of the gap.
That's amazing. I like that because God also meets us where we're at. So even if you're going through something bad, or for example, you're in the casino, you never know how God's going to turn that around and maybe use you for people who are actually struggling with casino addictions, you know?
Right.
And so
Absolutely.
you might say, oh, well, some people think it's bad to gamble or whatever, but God always places us in the right place, even though we may not feel we should be there. I believe it's like God has a plan, right?
Right, right, right,
And
right.
even if you're doing something that you're not supposed to, God's gonna turn it around. So I love that.
I'm really trying. I'm trying to keep God in the center of it all. And, we forget. And I don't ever want to take God for granted. It happens because he's always there for us, and we can take him for granted really easily. And I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I want to be humble about it, and say, honestly, yeah, I'm struggling, and I love what I'm doing a lot. And there is something to be said about that too. It's just, we want to make sure we don't, love it too much, right?
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Put God first, right?
Yeah, 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 for
Um,
sure.
I know you were mentioning earlier to me about the impact that your daughter she's having on you. Would you like to, talk more about that?
Yes. So my daughter is, she's the youngest of my three. Basically, she's a woman in my life right now that is impacting me in a major way. She's just so strong. She was a hard worker. She does struggle with mental illness. It's something that I've shared with in on my podcast in the past, and it's something that, also in the time of me kind of stopping putting down my podcast, we were dealing with a lot with her when, she was younger and stuff. She struggled a little bit too with with alcoholism, like not necessarily like alcoholism, it's such a big word, but just drinking. She's about to become baptized. She was raised Christian. We went to church all, the kids' life. I always took them to church when they were little and things. But, as a young adult and after high school and stuff, she did kind of spread her wings and look for her own path. And I respected it. I mean, she searched. I mean, she was curious about all types of religions, including like Buddhism and all types of things. And we just supported her through the way. And I just always, just trusted in God and that she's going to find her way, because that's what one of the hardest things that we have to do as parents is let them go, release them. And I always tell myself, and I'll tell any parent out there too, we hold on to them and we want to just control and like do everything for them because we don't want them to fall into a hole. But they're safer with God than they are with us. And that means a lot. And I had to learn that, when my oldest went off to college and went away. I mean, I used to worry about him. He wouldn't answer the phone. I couldn't find him. We didn't have Life 360 back then. And I was just like, and where is he? And is he safe? And I just had to say, God, he's with you and he's safer in your hands than mine. But my daughter, back to her, she does Bible studies relentlessly. She gets up and goes with her friends. She's doing her own thing, and she's invited us to her baptism. She found her own church. She's just been determined, and she loves the Lord. And when she was little, she loved Jesus. Like, she loved Jesus. And it was really sad to me as she was growing up to see that. I don't feel like the love faded, but just not to see it very apparent. You want the best for your kids. And I always wanted my children, to know Jesus, because if they knew Jesus, then in any situation, they would be okay through their lives when I'm not there. And I just wanted that for them.
Yes, exactly.
Mm.
It's like,
Mm.
if you teach your children the right thing, they're always going to go back to the right thing, to God.
Yeah.
Like the prodigal son story, that's a perfect example.
Yeah. And
Um,
and she's seen me in despair. She's seen me struggle. I have struggled, through my life, and it's not a secret, with anxiety and depression, and I do therapy and all the things and that kind of stuff, and that's nothing new. And to have my daughter minister to me, on the flip side versus me to her as a mother, it's just been one of the most humbling, beautiful things. I just think about seeds and sowing seeds and fruit. They talk about the fruit of our labor, and they talk about training your children the way they go, and when they grow up they will not depart from it. The Bible talks about that.
yeah.
I'm not someone lately who, I don't do a whole bunch of Bible studies. I don't read the Bible like I used to be honest with you. I love God. I pray every day. I talk to God every day. I have a relationship with him. I'm just not, it just looks different. Like, I'm not in church every Sunday. I am doing a devotional right now through the Lent season. It's been really nice. But to see my daughter return that unknowingly, just with a song and with a hand hold and with an encouraging word, is remarkable. It's beautiful because you think we get so exhausted teaching our kids, teaching our kids, teaching our
Yeah.
kids, teaching our kids. And it's exhausting to see they grow up and they just outdo you is the most beautiful thing. Like, I like literally almost lost it. Like, just like almost lost it when I saw God in her. I saw Jesus in her. I saw, myself, and I was just really humbled and grateful.
That is really beautiful, Crystal, because I can definitely see how, God's using your daughter to bring you closer to him, right? That's what it
Yeah.
sounds like.
Yeah.
And even if you're not like reading your Bible every day or, doing everything that you're supposed to, God's always going to speak to us through the person that we least expect, right? And so I love that. That is very touching. I was gonna cry, but I have to keep it together. I have to keep
I'm
it.
like,
And hopefully our listeners, we don't make them cry, but if they do, okay.
it's okay if you're crying. It's
It's
okay to
okay.
cry. Let it out.
Yeah. Or I know like whenever you're driving, that's like the best time to just let it out, right?
Yes, yes.
But yes, I love that. And then the last question I have for you is, what would you tell your younger self?
I would tell my younger self, to believe in yourself. There's a prayer I'm working on right now that I'm saying is, Lord, I believe, help my unbelief. And it's the unbelief. I don't know where it came from. I've struggled, I think, through my whole life. In hindsight, I can see with confidence and self-esteem and things like that. And I've always doubted myself, which has led me to a whole bunch of middle of the roads. They say like The road to success is filled with a bunch of squirrels that couldn't decide which way to go, like dead squirrels that couldn't decide which way to go.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, I've just struggled a lot with unbelief, disbelief, unbelief, and doubting and being stuck in that way. So I would tell myself to take chances, to complete things, whether or not you believe they were going to happen or not, to go out on a limb, to have faith, to dare to do what you want to do, regardless of who it affects or what, just to trust in yourself, trust in your instincts, like your God-given instincts. They are there for a reason. Like, you know what you should be doing. Stop wondering what everyone else is going to think about you, and stop worrying about it, because it doesn't matter. Be bold. And I know so many people these days are doing just, but it's taken me a long time to like really, 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 really soak and believe that, and to do that.
Amazing. Yes, boldness. I think it's definitely it's harder than what it sounds. Kind of ripping out of your shell, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah, and stop worrying about everyone else. Like, I mean, I love that saying, those who mind don't matter, and those who matter don't mind.
I love it. Thank you, Crystal. We're gonna have the coffee calendars and conversations link on the description. And thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. And I did want to add really quickly, when you said God speaks through us, is he speaks to us through love. So keep your eyes and your heart open for that love, that message of love, because that's how God speaks to us, and it's through love.
Perfect. Beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate you having me on here, because it was really good for me as well. It's good for me to let it out.
Yes, we should do it more often for sure.
Thank you so much.
Thank
I,
you.
I feel good. I feel excited about listening to it.
Thank you.